to the infamous story of the spies. What happened? God brought the Jewish people out of Egypt. We received the Torah at Mount Sinai, traveled in the desert for a little bit, and then the Almighty turns to Moses and says, Shelach lecha anashim v'yasuru es eretz Canaan. Send for yourself spies to go up the land of Canaan, and they will scout it out before you go in. Now, of course, God is saying to Moses, hey, Moses, send for yourself, because you don't have to send for me. I know it's a good land. I know this is the destiny of the Jewish people. But if you guys are feeling a little nervous about it, I'll help you out. You can send forth your own spies. So with God's approval, Moses sends forth 12 spies, one from every tribe, and they go and they scout out the land of Canaan. All right, when they come back, the spies divide themselves into two groups, a group of 10 and a group of 2. Both groups say that the land is marvelous, flowing with milk and honey. Both groups say that the cities are well fortified and inhabited by giants. But at the end, the smaller group, the group of 2 with Yoshua and Caleb, they say, let's go straight into the land. And they are shouted down by the group of 10 who said, no way, we'll get massacred. The Jewish people panic, and the Almighty says, enough. 40 days you scouted out the land of Canaan, 40 years you will wander in the desert. Our question is, where did the spies go wrong? Isn't it obvious that if God is telling you go in the land of Canaan, then just go in the land of Canaan? And if you are a little bit nervous, so too bad, grow up and just follow God? Well, the truth is, we also make the same mistake. How many of us stop and say, boy, I'd love to be more involved in a shul, a synagogue, a community. There's so many blessings that are around. I see that Judaism provides a great structure for a happier marriage and better parenting skills. Not a guarantee, but a better structure to be more successful. How many of us stop and say, oh, you know what? I know that if I just engage with Shabbos a little more or give a little more charity, God will give me a little more divine protection, a little more blessing. How many times have you heard someone who said, you know, I really should have kicked that guy to the curb. He's a real bum. Yet somehow I stayed in a relationship with him for years. Why do we make those mistakes? Why do we not do what God wants us to do? I think we can find the answer in 2 points in our story. The first point is, when the spies came back, they knew that the Jewish people did not want to change. They knew that they didn't want to pick up and run into the land of Canaan. They're on easy street. They're having a good time. Their food comes down from heaven. They have the well of Miriam's around. They're living in the clouds of glory. They're learning Torah all day. Things are great. And now the spies are going to tell them, oh, you know what? Pick up your shovel. Pick up your hoe. You're going to have to farm the land. And by the way, you're going to have to drive these giants out of their fortified cities to take over the land. People don't like to change so much. We don't like to change so much. However, the job of the spies was to be leaders. They had to tell the Jews, change. But there was another aspect that got under the spies' skin and made them less effective as leaders. When the spies came back and they were explaining to the Jews why not to go in the land of Canaan, they said, we were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and so we were in their eyes. Hello, how do you know how you look in somebody else's eyes? The truth is, sometimes we are insecure about ourselves, and therefore we project that insecurity into other people. One of the reasons why these spies were not as effective leaders as they should have been was because they themselves were insecure. They viewed themselves as grasshoppers. And then they just assumed that they truly were like grasshoppers in everyone else's eyes, and therefore they would be ineffective in their proper messaging and in their attempt to conquest the land. One of the ways to address our natural hesitance to change, and also sometimes an insecurity in our lives, is to make sure that we're around the right kind of people with the right kind of direction, the right kind of motivations. Ultimately, the failure of these spies rested with their hesitance to do what God wants them to do. It's interesting. There was a beautiful story told to the Baal Shem Tov. A great rabbi lived in the 1700s. So he explained to his followers that he learned how to trust God by having dinner with an innkeeper. One day he's having dinner in a small inn, and there's a knock on the door. It's a soldier at the door. So the innkeeper says, yeah, he's a soldier. I'm going to ignore him. An hour later, banging at the door. Soldier again. Innkeeper says, I'm not answering the door. Then again, louder banging. It's another soldier at the door. Finally, the innkeeper gets up and he says to the rabbi, I owe the landowner some money, and I really don't have it. I better go talk to the soldier. So he picks up, goes to the soldier. As he's talking with the soldier, up comes a carriage. A man gets out of the carriage, walks over to the innkeeper, hands him an envelope, looks at the envelope, counts the money, gives the money to the soldier, and the soldier goes away. When the innkeeper comes back in, the rabbi says, what was that all about? So the innkeeper said, Rabbi, I got to tell you something. I owed the landowner a lot of money. I didn't have the money, but I didn't lose 1 wink of sleep. See, I knew that somebody else owed me money, and I didn't know when he was going to come pay, but I know the Almighty runs the world. I know that God wants only good for me. So with confidence, I just waited, and sure enough, it just worked out that the man paid his old debt, and then I paid my debt. So let's go back to it. If you were hesitant to change, and you were insecure about your abilities, but you knew, just like that innkeeper, there was a God in this world who only wanted good for you and was running the world for your benefit, would you still hold back from doing what you needed to do? No. Take the time, be around people who live with confidence and joyfulness and faith. Take inspiration from them, just like the Baal Shem Tov did, and you too will learn to make the right decisions at the right time with great confidence and joy. I'm Rabbi Wyne, the Young Israel Aish of Las Vegas.